So if you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I've been studying Spanish quite intensively for the last couple of years. But recently I've been itching to try a new language, something a little bit different. So I've decided that over the next 30 days, I'm going to try and learn a little bit of German. So first of all, why German? Well, firstly, I wanted to try a language that I don't have any experience with rather than another Romance language, for example. And also I have been to Germany a couple of times and I really enjoyed my time there. So I thought it would be pretty cool to be able to go back to Germany in the future and maybe try and communicate a little bit more with some of the people there. However, I've heard that learning German can be a little bit tricky, so I'm going to be doing it with the help of a super cool language learning platform called Lingoda. Lingoda is a language learning platform that allows you to take small group classes or one-to-one classes with qualified native speakers and has a focus on getting you started speaking clearly and confidently right from the beginning. And they currently teach Spanish, French, German, and English. And because apparently I'm now like a proper YouTuber, Lingoda has actually been kind enough to sponsor this video and give me access to their platform. So over the next 30 days, I'm going to find out just how good Lingoda actually is, how it compares to my experiences learning a language on Italki, and just how difficult German really is. Okay, so that is the end of the first lesson. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit intimidating at first. It's the first class in their curriculum, but there was a few people that already knew a little bit of German, so there was a couple of points where people were saying things and I just had no idea what was happening. But all in all, not too bad. I learned a couple of things. I've got a few notes here. I learned a few survival phrases to get started. Let's see what the rest of the week has in store. I did 3 classes in the first week. One focused on learning new vocabulary, one focused on understanding the alphabet and basic pronunciation, and one focused on communication, using the vocabulary that we'd learned, asking and answering simple questions and things like that. And then on my off days, I just tried to go over my notes and tried to remember some of the stuff that we'd been learning. So the first week is done. Obviously, I've only been learning super basic things so far, but I feel like I've learned quite a lot of useful stuff, and I actually feel like I could use a lot of the stuff that I've been learning so far, and that's pretty awesome. So one of the things that's really cool about Lingoda is they've got tons of content in their course, but you can actually choose what classes and what topics you want to actually learn about. So the one that I've been doing this week is called I Can Survive in a German Classroom. It's the first in their A1 course. So now that, in theory, I can survive in a German classroom, I'm looking forward to trying some new topics and learning about some new things next week. But I think that in order to get the most out of this experience, I also need to start to expose myself to some more German outside of the classes so that I can start to practice some of the things that I've learned, maybe come across some new words, and just generally expose myself to the language so I can ask more questions within the classes and things like that. So I did 3 more classes in the second week. They were still focused on talking about yourself and where you live, things like that, but starting to go a little bit more in depth now. I also started listening to the language transfer course, and then I also came across what must be one of the most happy and excited language teachers on the whole of the internet, who also has a great selection of videos just for beginners. Okay, so week 2 is done. Obviously I'm still working on pretty simple stuff, but it's definitely a step up from week 1, because once you pass that first chapter, the I Can Survive in a German Classroom, they try and speak to you and communicate with you mostly in German. So you can ask a question in English or in your native language, but they want to speak to you in German and they want you to try and speak in German to get you communicating and try and build that confidence early. In terms of the language itself, there's definitely parts of the pronunciation that I've been struggling with and can see myself continuing to struggle with in the future, but obviously I haven't really had a chance to run into anything too complicated so far. There are a couple of little words that keep tripping me up, like little false friends, like wo, that's just spelled W-O, which means where, and there, which is spelled W-E-R, which means who, and those in my mind are often switched around, so I have a little bit of trouble with little things like that, but we'll see what next week brings as I start to get into some more advanced stuff. In week 3, I actually skipped ahead a few chapters in the course so that I could learn to talk about my hobbies and my job. I did 2 classes on each subject, and this was when I started to get exposed to longer sentences and more complicated structures, and we started to learn how to talk not just about what we do and what we like, but also why. And it was definitely a bit of a challenge, but it was really fun to start to talk about things that were a little bit more meaningful and personal. I also started trying to expose myself to some more input and started watching some videos from Easy German about the subjects that I was learning about in the classes. So the sentence structure in German with simple sentences is quite similar to English, but as you start to try and construct longer sentences and longer ideas, it definitely gets a bit more complicated. Also, a feature of German that I did know about before was the compound words, where you can take two or more words and put them together to make another new word, a more specific word, which is pretty cool. What I did not know, however, was that they also have verbs made up of multiple elements that then split up when you conjugate them. So in their root form, they're one complete word, and then when you conjugate them in a sentence, you have to split them up and put the different parts in different places depending on the structure of the sentence. So that's fun. Anyway, I've got 1 week left, so let's see if I can get my head around some of these longer sentence structures and see if I can learn a few more cool things. So in my final week, I decided to take a couple of classes on how to order food and drink in a cafe, and then finished off with another class on hobbies and a final class talking about my job. I also continued to try and get some comprehensible input and found this pretty cool movie that was specifically made for A1 German learners and was actually really useful because it covered pretty much everything that I'd been learning throughout these 30 days. And so, it's the end of the final week, the 30 days have come to an end, and with them my experience learning German on Lingoda. So let's talk a little bit about how much I've actually learned and my experience using the Lingoda platform. I guess it makes sense to try and speak a little bit of German first so you can see what I've been able to learn over this 30-day period. Okay, ich bin Shane, ich bin 30 Jahre alt. Ich komme aus England und wohne in Southampton. Ich wohne mit meiner Freundin und ich habe ein bisschen Deutsch gelernt, weil das ist eins meiner Hobbys. Ich finde es interessant. Ich bin Englischlehrer, das ist mein Beruf. Ich mag ihn, weil kann ich vielen Menschen, kann ich vielen Menschen helfen und ich lerne gern neue Leute kennen. In meiner Freizeit, ich spiele gern Klavier und ich koche gern. Ich kann auch im Café bestellen, in theory. Obviously 30 days isn't enough time to learn a good amount of a new language, but I feel like I've learned an okay amount in a short time. But let's talk a bit more specifically about Lingoda and my experience using their platform. So let's start with the course and the content. So their course starts at A1 as a complete beginner and takes you all the way up to B2, which would be like higher intermediate. As I mentioned earlier in the video, they have a wide range of real life topics that you can pick and choose from. And you can also take specific types of lessons within each topic. Some are focused on grammar, some are focused on reading, others are focused on communication, and so you can pick what style of class you want to do depending on your goal. I also think the course has a good blend of different elements. You do a little bit of speaking, you do some reading, you do writing, you do different little exercises, but there's not too much of any one thing, there's variation, and it's certainly not like a traditional style class. There's a lot of emphasis on communication and using the language. Each class also has a corresponding PDF so that you can download the content for the class either before the class to prepare for it, or you can download it after the class and it will have all of the notes that the teachers added as well. The only thing sort of negative I could really mention here is that within each level, all of the classes will follow the same or a very similar format. So you're always going to be following the same kind of class format. That's not necessarily bad, but sometimes maybe there's an element of repetitiveness or a bit of predictability. But overall, I was really impressed with the actual course content, and I really like that they focus on real life important topics, and I haven't just spent the last 30 days memorizing colours and farmyard animals. So let's talk about the teachers. All of Lingoda's teachers are qualified native speakers, so they have experience with teaching the language and they can answer any questions you have, whether it's to do with grammar or other parts of the language. They also have a lot of teachers. I took 14 classes over a 30-day period and I never had the same teacher twice. Now you do have the option of favoriting a teacher so that you can do more classes with that person or find classes with that person a little bit easier, but I just decided not to do that. And overall, I just found that the teachers had really good energy. I never really felt like any of them didn't want to be there or were bored or anything like that. It was a really good energy. In terms of the actual classes themselves, I have to admit that one of the elements that I was a little bit more apprehensive about before starting this experience was the group class element. Not because I think that group classes are bad, but just because I'd never really had an experience learning languages in a group environment. But I actually ended up really enjoying it. You're never in a class with someone who has a level that's either so much higher or so much lower than yours that it kind of stops the class from flowing. It's always an encouraging environment, and between the content and the teachers, they do a really good job of getting you to engage with each other, so you talk with the other students, doing mini dialogues and little things like that. They're also very flexible with days and times, so when you go to book a particular class, you'll see a big list of the available days and times, but of course they have students from all around the world and not all of the days and times are suitable for everyone. So what you can do is pick a specific date and time that's suitable for you, and then Lingoda will assign a teacher and it will allow other students to book onto that same slot if they want to. And so, is it better than Italki? Now, I could admit it's not a completely fair comparison because they don't really claim to do exactly the same thing apart from broadly being able to help you learn a new language. And of course, it's going to depend on the person and where you're at in your language learning journey. But I definitely think that there are a lot of people that would get a lot more out of Lingoda than they would necessarily with Italki. I really enjoyed my experience using Lingoda, and I think that it's perfect for the people that don't really know exactly what to learn or how to learn it and feel like they lack a little bit of structure in their language learning. Having that structured and detailed course content that advances through the levels really helps to just take away that stress of thinking about what you need to focus on next and how you need to keep trying to improve and how you can keep trying to figure out new ways to improve your language learning. It's also great for people that would like to learn in a more social environment. Up until now with my language learning, I've always done one-to-one classes, and of course there's a little bit of socialness there because I'm speaking to someone else, but if you're someone that really feeds off the energy of other people and likes to be able to engage with other people who are on a similar path to you and that are at a similar level to you, then their small group classes are perfect. But of course, no platform is perfect for everyone, so let's quickly talk about who shouldn't use Lingoda. If you're someone that's already confident and comfortable with managing their own language learning journey, then you probably won't get quite as much out of Lingoda. And also, if you're already at quite a high level and the main thing that you're looking for is the opportunity just to speak a lot, then I probably wouldn't recommend Lingoda. They do focus on communication and you do speak quite a lot, but obviously as you get to a more advanced level, you need more time to be able to talk about more things. And so I think that as you are getting into kind of B2 territory, you're probably going to want to go with one-to-one classes. And so on top of the fact that Lingoda already offers a 7-day free trial, if you use the link in the description, you'll be able to get an awesome 40% off your first month. So if you haven't already tried Lingoda and you would be interested, make sure you use the link in the description to get 40% off. And if you have already tried Lingoda and you've already got some opinions on it, then I'd be really interested to hear from you, so let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tschüss!